Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday morning. Thank you for joining me on my Facebook Live this morning. As always, please feel free to ask questions. I will answer throughout the live, so just ask away. And for those of you on the call, please say hello, give me some likes or some loves, and tell me about your dog. What's your dog's name? What did you name? What was the reason you picked that name? There's some great names with some great stories. For example, my 5-year-old Border Collie's name is Unique Perspective. The kennel name is Unique. And one day I was driving down the road and the car in front of me's license plate said Perspective. And I'm like, wow, that's a great name for a dog. Don't ask me why. And then his call name was Speck. So tell me why you named your dog, whatever you named your dog. Anyways, so while we give people a couple of minutes to join us, I want to talk about something that's come to my attention this week. So if you go on my website, www.dogtraining.ca, you will find a free downloadable Good Socializing Practices ebook. So when you download this ebook, I ask the question, what have you done with your puppy to socialize? And I know, especially with COVID happening, there has been some challenges. So this is something I always really focus on with puppies, that I don't think people understand exactly what this means. So I am still surprised by how many people just tell me that my dog's played with the neighbor's dog or has played with my sister's dog. And they go through the number of dogs the dog's played with, but they don't tell me anything else about socializing. Socializing is getting your dog used to the world. If you don't expose your dog to the world, your dog will have a hard time in the world. So if you want a dog who's going to go camping with you and going to go away on vacation and go for family outings and stuff like that, you need to start when they're young so that they're comfortable and they can handle the environments you put them in. If not, they're going to have a really hard time. So socializing to the world consists of so many things. People of all shapes, colors, smells, hats, sunglasses, wheelchairs, walkers, face masks. Face masks are a big one. I was speaking to someone the other day and her dog was in a room full of people with face masks and he was fine with that. But when somebody he didn't know took their face mask off, I think he realized, oh, I don't know you. And then he did that stranger danger bark. Noises, construction zones, kids playing, air brakes like on a truck, carts, skateboards, trucks, buses, all make different noises and different smells, and you want them to understand those things are not dangerous. Sights, umbrellas, fire hydrants. For my dogs who live in the country, they have often had a little, oh my, what's that, when they see a fire hydrant. Garbage cans. Again, if your dog walks down the street every day and one day there's a garbage can, he may go, hey, what is that? Dogs notice differences, especially when they hit adolescence. So many things to socialize to. If you are worried about vaccinations, and depending where you live, that is a true concern, then carry your puppy in your arms or even drive them around and let them see stuff. Ian Dunbar says your dog should meet 50 people a week before they are 4 months old. And that sounds like a huge number, but it really isn't. As soon as they don't have to touch 50 people. In fact, I strongly encourage you not to let most of those people touch your dog. I want my dog to learn to walk by people, not to feel every person they meet needs to touch them. But exposure, once you're out in public, it's really easy to walk near or by or let your dog see 50 people. And that will start explaining to them that people come in all sorts of different variations and they are all just people and not something to be worried about. If you're not sure how to go about this, keep listening, because the ODR game, which is today's topic, is how I start socializing my puppies. And next week, I'm going to do a special ODR game just about puppies. So let me know if you have any questions, and otherwise we're going to get started. Let me organize my screen so I can see your questions. There we go. Okay, we're going to get started for today. So the topic for today is the ODR game. This game is one of my core concepts. ODR stands for Observe, Don't React. I have been developing this game since the beginning of my dog training journey. figuring out what did and didn't work for my dogs and everybody else's dogs. I have worked with hundreds, if not thousands, of dogs over the last 20 years improving this technique. My goal is to have a dog that can look at something and no matter how exciting, keep their brain in their head. Because when you have a dog with their brain in their head, you know what? They can hear you, they can listen, they can stay calm. Without a doubt, for some dogs, this is so much easier than others, and ages are going to make a big difference on your dog's ability to do this. I remember my first dog. He was an awesome, friendly, great temperament Akita, whose name was Yukon. If you know Akitas, friendly and great temperament are not always words that generally go with them, but he was a wonderful example. But here was the thing. He was a complete idiot on leash. Yeah, he was super friendly, but he pulled like a truck towards anything, everything. And he was 90 pounds. So he dragged me to the ground a couple of times, even on a prong collar. Luckily, being an Akita, he mellowed out as he got to the age of 2. The guarding breeds tend to start to lose their uber friendliness at the age of 2 and become aloof. That's why it's so important to get them really comfortable with the world, because if you've already got a dog who's a little worried and then they hit 2 where they lose some of that friendliness, well, now that's going to potentially be aggression or at the very minimum, a lot of fear. So that's why socializing is, again, so important. He became manageable, but still was not perfect or even close to that. So I figured there had to be a better way. And I spent many years trying to figure out what that was, a way to build the calm behavior I was looking for right from puppyhood. I saw other people had it and I would watch them. Instructors, people I admired, I would watch them and figure out what was it they did that I wasn't doing. So I knew it could be done. Do you have a dog with this problem who is so excited every time they see something, but now they're dragging you places? My new puppy, Wicca, who is now 7.5 months old, would definitely be that dog. I am so pleased. She loves everything and everybody she meets. She enjoys the world, but without learning some self-control, she would be hard to manage because she would be leaving me all the time and dragging me. In this live, I'm going to give you the key concepts of the ODR game, what I'm trying to reach or achieve. In the following weeks, I will speak more of how I use it with puppies, with overly excitable dogs, and finally with reactive dogs. The ODR game is a concept. The concept is keeping the dog's brain in their head. In other words, calm and collected. All things start from a place of calm. For example, and this is so much easier if you start right from the puppy, you drive your dog to your regular off-leash spot. You get there, you open the door, dog flies out of the car and goes for a run in the forest. This is a great opportunity to start to create some self-control. Or what if you open the door and see a skunk? You want you to be able to go sit or come and your dog go, yep, no problem. But if your dog understands the reward is running in the forest, your dog loses the ability to hear you as soon as you open the car door. So teaching some self-control teaches them how to be able to still hear you. So I would suggest you could bring him out on leash and hold the collar until he's calm. Not for long, just a second or so at the beginning. And then I'd give such a cue such as go play, and then let them go. So I do this every morning. I take my puppy and I walk to the bus stop with my son. This is a great time for us to practice using her head halter and getting her used to it. It's a very boring 5-minute walk, so there's nothing else going on for her. And then on their way back, we get to go off leash in the field. So every morning I take her by the collar and now I'm stopping and I wait till she looks at me and acknowledges me, not just stares at the field, before I take her by the collar. And then I take her head halter and leash off. And then I want her looking forward because for agility, I want to create that drive forward. So I wait till she's looking forward and then I say, go play, and I let go. So I'm practicing exactly what I'm talking about here. 3 months from now, 4 months from now, I'm going to get to that point and she's going to be like, hey, can I go off leash? And that's exactly what I'm looking for, instead of, oh, I'm going to start pulling as we hit this corner because I know I get to go off leash when we get there. Okay, back to the go play. You have not only created calm, you have also, calm is always the goal. Calm is that thinking dog that can listen and perform what you ask. You have also built value for the go play. Releases are very powerful and super underutilized by the average person. It's a great way to reward your dog, and I promise you it will come up as a subject for a Facebook Live. The reward of being released to go do something they want to do, such as go play, eventually becomes more valuable than the playing. In other words, the being calm with you becomes more valuable than going to play. I know it's hard to believe, but I promise you, so happens, and it's so powerful. You can start teaching this concept of calm when I hold the leash with the Get It game. And I've talked about the Get It game in previous lives. This is an easy game to play that teaches your dog how to be calm when he sees something he wants. Take your dog by the collar and toss a visible cookie about 1 foot in front of your dog. And the reason I mentioned visible, don't toss a cookie that is the same color as your floor, because that will, I don't want your dog searching for the cookie. I want your dog seeing the cookie. Do not ask for a sit. If your dog chooses to sit, that is perfectly fine, but I'm not asking for a sit. I am looking for the dog to calmly look at the cookie. The reason being, if your dog is not looking at the cookie and looking at you or looking away, then he's not exerting self-control because he's not looking at the cookie and making the choice not to drive towards the cookie. Self-control comes from looking at something you want and making the choice not to go get it, which is the definition of walking on a loose leash. Looking at the environment going, not available, not available, not available, not available. Now, like in the example I want calm looking. So if your dog is bucking like a bronco and pulling forward and shifting his weight, you're just going to hold the collar and just wait. Once they realize this isn't going to work, they will start to relax. Just give it a minute. It will happen. I promise. I've done this with hundreds of dogs. They always calm down. I want my dog to understand calm when I take them by the collar. I don't want bucking bronco. If you can't hold your dog because your dog is huge or whatever, or it's taking forever to relax, you can put the cookie further away. Always remember we're working ODR game. Distance is a simple way to make the challenges easier. A dog who reacts at a squirrel at 20 feet, which most do, may not react at 100 feet or 200 feet, whatever. There's a distance where your dog goes, I can watch that and not react. That gives you the foot in the door to start building value for not reacting and slowly get to 20 feet. But if you always put your dog at 20 feet and your dog keeps failing, all you're teaching him is to lose his mind every time he sees a squirrel. So this is where you have to be really careful and manage your dog's environment so he is learning what you want him to learn and not what you don't want him to learn. Okay, back to the game. Before you give the get it cue and let go, you should have a dog that has all 4 paws on the ground and is looking at the cookie on the floor. That is the goal. In the real life uses for this game, the dog may never get released to the other dog or the squirrel. I understand that. But you will reward by putting the cookie in the dog's mouth. The get it is just building the concept of when I hold your collar, you can look at things and stay calm. So now for the next level of the ODR game. So the Get It game is kind of like a part of the ODR game. The ODR game is the whole concept of calm. So the next level is your dog can do this holding the collar. Now you're going to let go of the collar and hold the leash. The important part here is how you hold the leash and how you interact with the leash. At any time, if my dog gets too excited or starts to lose their mind, I go back to holding the collar. I feel it gives you a lot more control and the dog understands the concept much easier of staying calm. When the dog is comfortable with the collar grab, it works to help them return their brain. I think part of it is just the touching of them brings them back into their body. One thing I've noticed in my years of training is people like to hold their leashes tight. I think it gives us a feeling of control. If I've got you held on really tight, you can't do anything. The problem with this is the dog automatically, instinctively pulls in the opposite direction, which is away from you, which you never want. This is called opposition reflex. And it also means the dog is always practicing being on a tight leash. and losing the sensitivity that they have as puppies to not pulling on leash. You put a little puppy on leash, you put pressure on that leash. Some of them buck and argue, but they're still like, I don't like this pressure. I want to maintain that skill, that emotion, because I want them to always avoid leash pressure. If I'm always holding my dog on a tight leash, this becomes more and more normal behavior, that tight leash, and something they do all the time, which sucks when you go to walk on leash. So the other thing that happens on a tight leash is the dog's brain is much more likely to fall out of their head. Have you ever been in a situation where your dog doesn't react until you tighten the leash? He's holding it together and all of a sudden you put pressure on the leash and he's like, yep, I'm done. I see this a lot when people let their dogs greet on leash. The dogs are sniffing and circling, and then you go to pull away and your dog seemed fine, but then all of a sudden goes after the other dog. It's the leash pressure. Your dog could keep it together, but as soon as he feels the leash pressure, they go into a defensive state. The more collar grab you do, the less this will happen. But with some dogs, it's like they want to say hello, but they're really, really nervous. And all of a sudden, when they feel pressure, they're like, bah, I can't do it. So be very careful of that. Being on a loose leash requires them to keep their brains working to maintain that loose leash. And this is the goal of the ODR game. Maintain a loose leash at all times, and therefore keep your brain in your body. Here are the steps to achieve this loose leash. Pick a leash length and don't change it. I will post a picture in the comments on how I hold the leash. But basically, you need to hold it in a way that it's not going to slip and you're not going to constantly rearrange it. I think it's a stress reaction, but people are constantly like collecting the leash and releasing the leash, collecting the leash and releasing the leash. And that's affecting the dog, right? So you want to really be aware of how you interact with the leash. Once you have a way to hold the leash, I want you to anchor the leash on your body. Now, you've given your dog a consistent leash length they have to respect. So if the dog chooses to tighten the leash, you take a step in the opposite direction. Now the dog has a choice. The dog can choose to loosen the leash by moving towards you, which is a huge win, and we'll go into that in a minute, or the dog can choose to keep being distracted and stay on a tight leash. If the dog chooses to stay on a tight leash, you take one more step. And I'm not walking away. I am taking one step and letting the dog make a choice. You're looking for your dog to make choices. The choices are what creates the learning. If you drag your dog away, you didn't make a choice. You made a choice. Your dog didn't make a choice. You made the choice for the dog. And in fact, you are building behavior of pulling towards the item because you're dragging him away and he's trying to get to the distraction. You want your dog to go, oh, pressure on the leash. Oh, I do this. The pressure comes off. So when they take the pressure off the leash, they're choosing to move towards you and choosing to move away from the distraction. The reward here is comfort. It is much more comfortable to be on a loose leash than a tight leash. So first, because we're rewarded all the time by allowing them to get to where they are going, they get used to being on a tight leash. And second, they go on a tight leash because their brain falls out of their head and they don't feel the discomfort. So you want to be constantly reinforcing that choice to keep the leash loose, because that choice becomes stronger, more and more valuable, and that means they're moving away from the distraction. I don't care if they're turning away. I need them to back away. The reason, this is why I put all my puppies on head halters as soon as they start to pull. I never want the habit of pulling to be established. I want them to always be sensitive to that collar pressure. Usually by round 2, they don't need the head halter anymore and they're able to walk on a loose leash. This is because by 2, I feel all the self-control work has taught them how to use their brain. And then head halter allows me to keep taking them out and not allow them to build the habit of pulling. So back to moving away from the distraction. The dog is voluntarily making the choice to move away from the distraction. This is one of those key skills that everything else grows from. If your dog does not choose to move away, like I said, no big deal, just take one more step, increasing the discomfort, increasing the likelihood of the choice I want, which is move away from the distraction. Keep doing this until your dog makes the choice you want to voluntarily move away from the distraction. Once they can look at the distraction on a loose leash, that is what you reward. So I do want to make one comment. I am not rewarding the dog for looking away from the distraction or moving back. I am rewarding the dog for looking at the distraction and not moving forward. This is subtle and it's a timing thing, but if your dog pulls and then backs up and you reward, you are rewarding the pulling. They stick together. Those behaviors become, oh, I pull and then I back up and then she gives me a cookie. I know this because I taught my Siberian Husky to lunge and spin and come back and go, Mommy, look what a good boy I am. So trust me on this. When they back up, give them a moment, take a breath, and then they're like, okay, I can look at the distraction. That's what you reward. And when you reward, you're not calling them back. You're not making them look at you. You're leaning forward and putting the cookie in their mouth. If they're unable to take food, then you're too close and I'll back up, or you need higher value rewards. Remember, the goal of the ODR game is observe, don't react. It's not don't observe. I want them to look at things. I encourage them to look at things. What I want them to do is not react when they look at things. I want them to understand how to see the distraction and be able to keep it together. I realize this is the complete opposite of a lot of programs that teaches dogs to look away. Here's my reasons for doing it this way. My ultimate goal is for my dog to walk down the street and not react to anything. I don't want it to be my responsibility to constantly be scanning the environment and be ready to lure my dog away or make my dog look away. I want my dog to just go, yeah, it's a dog, and keep walking. Yeah, it's a person, and keep walking. Yeah, it's a squirrel, and keep walking. To not care enough to react, to be calm and confident. That starts with watching the distraction and being able to keep it together. On a side note, it can be dangerous for you and your dog not to be looking where you're going. So a lot of people are like, we're going to walk by the dog and I'm going to feed you cookies. And the dog's looking at them and they're looking at the dog. And I had a client who was doing this and she walked into a parked car. A car was parked in a driveway, but it was across the sidewalk. And of course, she was so focused on her dog and her dog not seeing the other dog, she walked into a car. So please be careful. And this is also the reason why at this stage of the game, I am not moving. I am standing still. It allows me to control the environment much better. Things don't startle me, and it allows me not to walk into stuff. My general rule is about 3 to 5 rewards for watching calmly unless the environment changes. By changes, I mean if you are watching a dog standing quietly, and all of a sudden that dog turns to your dog and barks, that's a change in the environment. So right away I'd reward because the environment has changed. Or another dog walks up, that's a change in the environment, I would reward. But if that dog's standing calmly, not looking at your dog and nothing changes, I'll reward 3 to 5 times-ish for looking calmly at that dog. And then I'm not going to reward anymore. So now your dog has a choice. If he's standing there on a loose leash, what I'm going to start doing is getting behind my dog. The reason for this is dogs have very big peripheries, so they can see to about here. They can look at that dog, and if you're standing next to them, they can look at you and keep both of you in sight. When you get behind them, they can't see you. So now they're going to go, I look at the dog, and it's really cool to watch. They look at the dog, but every now and then they're like, are you still there? Because you're on a loose leash, they kind of have to make sure you're still there. So they'll look at the dog and then they'll be like, are you still there? They'll look at the dog and then, are you still there? Well, that's uncomfortable. So sooner or later, they make the choice to look at you. So here's the next step of the ODR game. Let's first talk about the amazing stuff. He is now choosing to look away from the distraction and choosing to focus on you. As I might interact for the glances right at the beginning, but very quickly, this is not what will make me interact with my dog. It's this. I'm looking at you, not I'm just quickly glancing at you. So this is the next phase. When the dog chooses to look at you, this is really important. Do not give them a cookie. Restrain yourself. I know it's hard, but do not give them a cookie. Giving a dog cookies for just looking at you will lead to obnoxious cookie behaviors such as barking at you, jumping at you, and pawing at you. When you reinforce a behavior over and over, your dog will eventually expect to be rewarded. And it is actually a punishment not to reward. This makes sense, right? If you, for example, you put money in the bank machine and you put your card in the bank machine and it gives you money. That becomes an expected behavior. When you put your card in the bank machine and it doesn't give you money, that's a correction. You are like, hey, what's going on? Your dog's the same way. And what are you going to do? You're going to yell at the bank machine and bang on the bank machine. You're not just going to try it once and go, oh, it's not giving me money today and walk away. You're going to escalate. So that's what happens with a dog who gets heavily reinforced for looking at their owner, and then the owner is like, okay, I'm done doing this, and then goes, hey, hello, why aren't you feeding me? So when they don't get rewarded, they will change their behavior to earn that reward. And that's when you start to get the jumping, the pawing, the barking, the biting. I've seen all sorts of stuff. We then usually react to these behaviors because we're like, hey, don't do that. Or, hey, I guess I should have rewarded you. Here you go. And even talking to them is still rewarding. So now the dog's like, hey, pawing at you gets me cookies, or poking your pocket gets me cookies. So now we've built other behaviors into standing there, which isn't what I want. I want my dog to be able to hang out. I want him to go to a soccer game and just hang out and watch the soccer game. I don't want to have to be feeding him all the time, or him expecting to be fed or becoming obnoxious. So how I solve this is I want to acknowledge my dog's looking at me. I want to reinforce it, but I don't need it all the time. So contextually, if we're watching a soccer game, I do not want my dog to be staring at me all the time. Look around, enjoy yourself. Because staring at me is going to make me uncomfortable. And I don't care, like he doesn't need to. So instead of rewarding, I'm going to ask for work. So at first I start with super simple stuff like come or sit, something that they can perform easily without a lot of brain power, and I can reward. Looking at me earns the opportunity to earn a reward. So it doesn't mean I'm going to reward them. And then it becomes a little contextual. Like if I'm at my agility field and I stop there with the leash and my dog looks at me, he's going to expect me to interact because that's what we're doing. But if I'm sitting in a chair at my son's soccer game, he knows I'm probably not going to interact. And I might reward the odd time for him looking around calmly, and I'll throw it at his, like between his paws. So I'm rewarding looking around, not looking at me again. Once they start focusing on me and can let go of the environment, I will start to work. I start with super simple stuff like come or sit, and then I start working on stuff like heel or some agility skills. If at any time they're like, hold on, I need to pay attention to the environment, at this stage, I very much let them. I have management tools in place, but if they need to look, I let them. I don't stop them, but we go right back into ODR, which means they're allowed to look at the environment. They are not allowed to interact with the environment. For example, I'm working sit stays and somebody walks into the room and my dog's like, oh, it's a person. I'm just going to hold the leash and go into ODR, and she's going to go, I want to go to that person, and I'm going to go, I'm not going to let her. And eventually she's like, okay, I'll come back and work with you. That's what eventually gives you the dog who goes, oh, it's a person. Okay, I'm working. I've got something to do. And that's what we all want. This also gives them the confidence that you're never going to force them to work when they're worried. With Wicca, for example, she would be excited to see the person, But with another dog, he might go, I need to make sure that person's not dangerous. Remember, dogs that are worried think things are dangerous that we don't necessarily consider dangerous. So I want him to be comfortable checking out that person and going, okay, it's okay. I can go back to work, because that's how they build confidence. So here it is, guys. That is your introduction to the ODR game. I've brought it up in a number of lives, so I felt it was time to really spend the time explaining it better. This is a game I teach every single dog that works with me in one form or another. The game I use to teach the overly friendly dog how to be calm and polite, and the game I use to eliminate leash reactivity. Please join us for the next few weeks as I dive deeper into the ODR game and all the benefits. If you know you need this game but have no idea where to start, feel free to contact me. I do both remote and local training. To help you achieve the dog you're looking for, the dog you want, the dog you're dreaming of. Next Friday at 10 a.m. will be about how I use the ODR game with puppies to teach self-control right from the get-go. That's all for now. Have a wonderful week and hope to see you next week on our Facebook Live. Thanks, guys. Bye.